You're listening to the Jōrni Podcast. So often the challenges we never asked for end up holding the very key we have been searching for. How can the struggles we resist become the beginning of our freedom? This episode contains adult subject matter, and some listeners may be triggered by this content. Listener discretion is advised. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Jōrni Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. In this episode, we explore what it means to embrace all of life, not only the moments that feel light and easy, but also the ones that test us. Beneath the resistance we carry, we find hidden invitations into a deeper way of being present with ourselves. Stephanie James stands at the intersection of personal transformation and spiritual wisdom. She has woven together her roles as a transformation coach, psychotherapist, international speaker, filmmaker, accomplished author, and pioneering podcast host of Igniting the Spark to bring her powerful content to thousands of individuals whose lives have been changed and inspired by her work. Drawing from decades of clinical experience and spiritual exploration, Stephanie's approach combines professional expertise, deep emotional wisdom, and the latest in healing techniques. As a transformation coach and psychotherapist, she has developed a unique methodology that helps individuals not just navigate change, but harness it as a force for personal evolution. Her work provides a clear compass for those seeking to thrive through challenging times, build lasting resilience, and create meaningful change in their lives. With an innate ability to illuminate the path to authentic self-expression, she has become a trusted voice in the global consciousness movement. Her new book, Your Big Fat Juicy Life and Everything After, illuminates how we perceive life, death, and the magnificent spectrum of human experience. It is also a jubilant invitation to us all to wake up, breathe deeply, and dance with the mysteries of existence. Stephanie's narrative shows us how to dissolve our deepest fears and, in doing so, ignite an unprecedented zest for living in our hearts and souls. Let's meet Stephanie James. Hi, Stephanie. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because we will be talking about your big, fat, juicy life. And I love that so much because to me that holds a lot of the keys that light us up, that give us that passion for living. And I feel in this world, we need to talk about those things a lot more because there's a lot of things happening that don't make us feel so great. Thank you for being here today, sharing this space with me, and a warm welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Petra. It's such a joy to be here with you.
Oh, thank you so much. And I feel like you are in a very magical place in New Mexico as well. So we'll bring in all of that feeling into our conversation. And Stephanie, would you like to start us off maybe with a little bit about your journey or your story, maybe the parts that you feel connect to what you do today, and share with our listeners a bit about what it is that you do today so they can get to know you a bit?
Sure. Thank you. I feel that there's not one of us, Petra, that gets out of childhood unscathed. While I had a beautiful 13 years of childhood, I speak about this in my book, Becoming Fierce. There was this moment where that all exploded in a night where my father really let my mom know that he was in love with someone else. And our family broke up at that point. And what was interesting about that is it took me on a journey through, of course, so much grief, losing my family. And then actually, I had been such a daddy's girl. I was one of those little girls who, if my dad was out raking the leaves, I was there with the bag, helping him put them in. And if he was on his workbench, I was hammering. He'd give me nails and a board, and I just hammer in just to be near him. When he moved out, it was very normal for me to move with him because we were so close. And unfortunately, really quickly after that, he was married to my stepmother, who made it very clear that she considered me the other woman. And that is what she said. So from that point on, I didn't get to speak to my father alone. I couldn't be alone with him in a room. And then until the day he died, I was not allowed to speak to him alone on the phone. That created this narrative in me that somehow I wasn't lovable, that somehow this person I had been so close to. And it wasn't until, Petra, I was in my early 30s that I went to Sufi school in San Francisco and had this experience that was a life changer for me. And really, I've always been on the path, but it really changed my life. And as we walked into the school, and it was really about becoming more of a conduit as a healer, really being able to be grounded in that as a psychotherapist and in the healing arts, to really, again, be that conduit. As I walked in, I shook Dr. Jaffe's hand. And it was one of those moments where he was holding my hand and looking into my eyes. And it was almost like he was just holding my hand a little too long. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he's looking in my soul. And he went up and started speaking. And about halfway through his talk, he looks out into the audience and he says, "Hey, you in the blue coat, I have a message for you." And I'm looking around and looking around. I look down, I'm like, oh, crud, I'm the one in the blue coat. And so he said, what I need you to know, my dear, and he says it, but I can't hear him. And he says it again. And Petra, I still can't hear him. The third time he says it, all of the air conditioning units in the place came on and no one could hear him. So everyone is laughing by this point. And he goes, "My dear, you have such resistance to hearing this message. Come up here." And so I came up and sat down on the little stairs by the stage. And he said, "My dear, what you most need to hear is stop trying. Stop trying. You've been trying to be perfect your whole life for your father, and now you're trying to be perfect for your husband. Stop trying." Now, I have no idea how he knew that, how he knew anything of my past, but it was absolutely true. And so it became this catalyst for me of really looking at, wow, I'd been seeking happiness and love outside of myself. If I could just be a good enough student, if I could just have a good enough career, if I could just look the right way and have the right house and all those things, then I would be happy. And it was in that moment I realized it was an inside job. And that began this huge deepening to awareness and awakening and the journey of my life, which has really been to bring as much love and healing to the world as possible and to be as clear of a conduit as possible to do that.
Oh, amazing. Thank you for sharing that story. And as you're speaking about that, I do feel that many of us, and our listeners included, I'm sure, have these experiences where we are resistant to things. We literally can't hear them or sense them because there's so much going on in our own heads. And we're looking externally for something to validate us, for something to bring us happiness, joy, to fill up that emptiness that we might be feeling. And you bring this key into this conversation, an inside job. And I just want our listeners to really let that sit for a moment, because we can buy all the purses, the houses, cars, whatever we want. I don't think anything will change in how we feel until we realize exactly what you said. Wow. And usually it takes a while to come to that conclusion. I feel like that's not something we often connect with in our teens or even 20s. It sometimes takes a while for us to find that.
I agree. It's almost like We have to excavate, if you will, that spark that is us. I think that beautiful spark that is each one of us, that's our essence. Sometimes through life circumstances and situations, it can feel like it gets covered up. And so our work is, how do we excavate that spark, that divine spark that is each one of us? And that's to all your listeners. It's inside of you. It is not separate from you. And so we can do this. And I talk about this in my book, Your Big Fat Juicy Life, is how do we learn how to befriend ourselves? That it's not just this one-time decision where we've all heard the phrase, oh, just love yourself, be your own best friend, but it's not that easy. So we have to cultivate a friendship with ourselves. It's like building a muscle. And we do that in repetition by showing up for ourselves, by having our own back. And what that means, oftentimes when I work with people, we talk about, how do you make yourself a priority in your own life? Not at the exclusion of others, not that others aren't priorities as well, but it's around, how do you show up for yourself? In particularly, I feel like it's so important. I call it bookends to our day, where you show up first thing in the morning. And so you're doing those things that feed your soul, whether it's meditation or a walk in nature, or just reading something inspirational, whatever that is that feeds your soul. And then at the end of the day, doing the same. I've just been reading Stephen Post's new book about pure unconditional love. And I love it. At night, the question he asks himself is, how did I show up in love today? And I love that. And I think we can say that for ourselves. How did I show up in love today with myself? How did I take care of myself? So these, I think, are some of those essential pieces as we're talking about really creating a big, fat, juicy life.
Yeah. And as I'm listening to you, I'm nodding along because I agree. This is a big piece of our journey. And I also think back a little bit to when I became aware that I was on this journey. And there was a lot of fear and there was a lot of resistance and self doubt happening. And especially when you grow up pleasing others, or you grow up thinking you're not good enough, you're not deserving of love, or you must be perfect all the time so that you do deserve love. These are a lot of big pieces to, as you said, excavate as you're making your way to finding that what's underneath there. Where can we start with that journey when we realize life is not quite as we had envisioned it? We're not feeling our greatest, but there are a lot of pieces that have been layered on top of finding ourselves. Where do we start with? We befriend ourselves and we start loving. And how do we deal with these big feelings that might come up, the fears, the anxiety, the hesitation? How do we work with that?
I'm so glad, Petra, that you brought this up, because I think it's absolutely an essential piece. Because having a big, fat, juicy life doesn't mean you don't have the sadness or the fear or the anxiety. Those are all pieces of being human. They're all part of our human experience. And so to hold those pieces in compassion and in kindness, and when they come up, not shoving them down, not trying to push them under the water, if you will. We would push a beach ball under the water because inevitably that beach ball is going to come back up and smack us right in the face. So what we do is we notice what's there. And I always think of Rumi's poem, The Guest House, which starts out by saying this human experience is a guest house. Each day, a new arrival. Some depression or meanness or sadness comes. Meet them at the door laughing and welcome them in. And the end of that poem says, welcome each guest because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. And what that means is that all of our emotions can be portals to deeper understanding of who we really are. And so part of befriending ourselves is holding what comes up. And one of the biggest ways that we start doing that is to pause. There is so much power in the pause, that we stop distracting ourselves. We put down our phones and the social media. We turn off our television and we actually sit with ourselves, with our own breath. One of the free gifts I have for your audience is this. It's just a 10-minute chakra meditation, where you go through the different chakras in your body and you're just breathing in and activating each one of those. And so many of my clients, they'd ask me for so long, we do it during session, and they say, please record that. So I record it. It's just 10 minutes. But it's one of the ways we can use this as a portal to come into our beingness, to come into our bodies. And that's how we start having this beautiful relationship with ourselves, is not expecting ourselves to show up any way other than we are in that moment. And I remember Michael Singer saying that. If you remember Michael Singer, who wrote Untethered Soul, he says, suffering is when we want this moment to be anything other than what it is.
That's so beautifully said. Thank you for that. It is true that I feel a lot of the time when we experience sadness, depression, anxiety, or any of these guests that come to visit us, it is because we are not in the present moment. It's because we are regretting things that happened in the past and thinking about that, or we're anxious about what the future is going to bring. So we're not actually in the present moment. We're sort of worrying about things we can't even change anymore because they're in the past, or things that might not even come to us in the future because our path might change entirely. So, yeah, coming back to that present moment and really being grateful, having that love for ourselves and staying in that moment, I think that actually addresses a lot of the things that might be happening with these guests that are coming to visit us, is by simply tuning back into that present moment and really sensing and feeling into where we are and what is happening now, not 10 days from now, a year from now, or what happened 5 years ago. So I feel like it's easier said than done very often, but we can work on that and we can make that part of our path and our experience. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, I do feel one of the important things that can help us start on that path as well is when we speak to ourselves and tell ourselves whatever is here is okay. That's one of the first things, because we have a natural negativity bias in our brain. And so it's always searching the environment for a threat. We are hardwired to notice what is wrong, what might potentially be coming down the path. And so it's natural that someone might worry about the future or ruminate about the past, but you are exactly right. It's when we can reel ourselves into the present moment. This is, again, where we can find this relationship with ourselves. And I think, too, I like to think of it as negative experiences are Velcro in the brain. They stick. And our brain files those away saying, oh, I need to know this in order to survive, so I don't do this again, or I can watch out for this happening. And positive experiences are like 2 fried eggs on a Teflon pan. They just slide right out. There's no need for our brain to keep hold of those, because we don't need those to survive. So one of the beautiful things, too, I invite your audience and your listeners to practice is what I call giving these positive experiences that we do have stickability. And we do that. We can drop into heart math, even if people are familiar with heart math, where you bring your hand to your heart and you're breathing into your heart center. And then you bring up a moment of joy or a moment of peace. And you allow yourselves to marinate on that. And research tells us if we hold something in awareness 18 seconds, you are giving it that stickability. You are telling your brain, hey, this is important. This matters. And so I always tell people, do it 30 seconds. I like to do it over a little bit anyway, but just to really give it that sense. And you will notice as you breathe into your heart and you breathe that up, you breathe that memory in. When I talk to people about negative fantasies, I say, you might as well make it a good one. And so bringing that joyful moment, bringing that peaceful moment to the present, and you will have a physiological response. Your parasympathetic nervous system will come on board. And you will notice, oh my gosh, I feel so much more resourced. Again, another entry point for befriending ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. I'm a huge fan of heart math as well. And a part of that practice is a bit of that consistency. I think it takes a little while to make our brain trust us with the fact that we want to make these positive experiences stick. It takes a little while for the brain to go, oh, right, okay, I might not need this for my survival, but this feels good anyways, and start to trust that for our own internal safety. So, yeah, I love that. And thank you also for the chakra practice that you will be sharing. Do you want to maybe share with our listeners a little bit what the chakras are or what they do so they can kind of understand how they would apply a practice like that and how that might affect what they're experiencing or what they're trying to accomplish on their path?
Yeah. So for people that don't know about chakras, they really are just the energy centers within our body. And for so many thousands of years, it's been a practice that when we are in these energy centers, we can notice if something's blocked or if something is clear. So we can begin with the root chakra, which is right underneath our perineum. And I love thinking of that as our connection to the earth as we are in there. And you'll notice as you go through the meditation, that's what it will talk about. It's feeling into that. If right now your listeners felt into their body, they could notice that feeling of rootedness. And then we move up into the lower belly. And the lower belly is really a place of safety. And so as we go into that location, and I'll go just really briefly here, but it's so important. I love thinking about the cauldron of our belly. So thinking of it like a bowl and really being in that space. And then moving up about 4 inches above your belly button. So your sternum. This is a lot of times the place where old remnants can be stored. We tend to store, you can think about when we're hurting and we have sometimes a gut ache. It's not in our lower belly often, it's right there. Making sure that this space is open is an absolutely imperative place, and just getting that re-energized. Of course, our heart chakra, which is oftentimes we don't realize, just like with heart math, how much time do we spend there? And so as we energize and focus on this beautiful area within us, we can do what you and I talked about before we got on the interview. We can become more of the conduit for that beautiful infinity sign of energy coming out of us and coming to us. And then we have the throat chakra. And oftentimes this can feel blocked if we feel like we're not speaking our truth. If we feel like we have been repressed, this oftentimes will notice the tightening of the throat. And so, again, such an important energy center for us. The next is right in between your eyebrows, which is your third eye. When I start meditation, I always start breathing in through my third eye. Again, these are just energy portals. So this is one of the ways, too, that we really connect with our inner vision when we were talking about really going inside. And then if you go about 6 inches above your head, that is the chakra that is connecting to source or divine, whatever that higher power is that you experience. So when we energize these in the morning, it's like we're bringing all of this energy on board. We're aligning ourselves. I love, again, the concept of the conduit. So we're connected to source and we're rooted deeply into the earth. And we're just being held perfectly here in this present moment.
Oh, I love that. And I love working with the chakras. I feel like my whole energy changes in how I show up in my day when I feel balanced and centered in those energy centers. So I do hope our listeners go and check the meditation out for themselves. I feel like they're going to have a magical experience with that. And definitely, if you take care of your chakras a little bit more frequently, I feel that some of these experiences, the more negative experiences, actually don't reoccur so very often because we're just more aligned and more in our center and in our energy. So I feel that ripples even through my health, physical health, because that affects the immune system and all different other things ripples into. So yeah, having that little just resetting yourself in the morning or in the evening, that I feel makes a huge difference in how we can connect to ourselves even and show up for ourselves. So amazing. Thank you for sharing that. We'll be sure to link that as well for our listeners. We'll tell you where to find that a little bit later on. But yeah, I'm very curious, Stephanie, how you came to write the book, Your Big Fat Juicy Life, because funny enough, I've heard a lot of people tell me, well, life is just a struggle and we work, we pay taxes, and then we die. So in between, we can just be lucky if we have a couple of great moments. Maybe we meet somebody we fall in love with, maybe we don't. It's a very kind of bleak outlook on this life that we're living. So, how did you come to write a book that sounds so inspirational and so very opposite of that and so magical and happy and joyful to actually be here on this planet and have this lifetime to play with?
Yeah, beautiful question, Petra. Thank you. A little over a year ago in March, I interviewed Neil Donald Walsh on my podcast, Igniting the Spark. And for listeners that might not know who that is, Neil Donald Walsh wrote Conversations with God in the 90s, and it sold over 5 million copies worldwide. And I believe he's written now 33 books. I mean, he's just gone on to be such an incredible inspirational speaker and actor, one of the top, I think, 100 spiritual influencers in our world. So I get on the call with him. And much like you and I, Petra, when we first got on, we could not get to the interview because we had such an alignment and such a connection. We were just talking, and he was asking me personal questions and of course, totally appropriate and totally fun. And then at one point, he just stopped. And it's great because I have this on video. You see him just get the download. And he looks at me and he says, Stephanie, you're going to write your next book and you're going to start tomorrow morning. And he said, this book is going to have a global impact and I'm going to endorse this book. Now, he had just met me for the first time in my life, but I felt that. I felt that within my entire being. I mean, like you and I were having chills when we were first talking with each other before the show. That's what was happening to me. I woke up the next morning and started writing. And what was phenomenal is my first two books each were 9 months each to write. So like gestating a baby. And this book came through in under 6 weeks. It was just, sometimes I'd be woken up at 4:30 in the morning and things were just coming through. And then what was really beautiful is when people came through to be in the book, I felt like they were just coming out of the woodwork, like Wayne Dyer's daughter, Sage. And when I spoke with her, she's like, oh, you got to talk to my mom, Marceline. And then someone else introduced me to Stephen Simon, who's the Academy Award-winning producer of What Dreams May Come, Ariel Ford, Suzanne Giesman. I mean, just these incredible people that just came to support the book, to be in the book. And the book's really about my life. A lot of it is my own experience and some experiences with clients. But what's interesting is that book actually is about how we befriend not just ourselves, but how do we befriend death, where we really get that it's just the next chapter in our book of eternity. And when we let go of that fear, because it's people's so often their number one fear, when we can make peace with that, then actually this moment becomes more sacred and we can show up even more fully right here and right now. That's, I think, one of the powerful messages in the book. And there's a whole chapter on growing through grief, that we can grow through grief. It doesn't have to be what puts us to the ground and we no longer function. It can actually be a beautiful part of our journey. And again, so the big, fat, juicy life is how do we embrace all of it?
Yeah. Oh, amazing. I'm so glad that that kind of came into your life and you were able to share that with the world. I feel when things come in that kind of speed and with that acceleration, 6 weeks, right? It's just meant to be out there. It needs to speak and it needs to come out there. And do you feel that oftentimes, maybe with your clients as well, that people really forget to live because they're almost frozen in place by this fear of death and grief and things that have happened in their lives that really just keep them stuck in where they are and they're afraid to even move or experience or have joy because all of that feels unsafe or unfamiliar. And are these some of the things that we can work through by befriending ourselves as well so that we can really open up? And you and I talked about opening our hearts and really having those experiences of love and actually being able to receive those experiences, which when we're in a state like that is not really possible. We're not really open to it. So can we work through this as well by befriending ourselves?
Yes, I think it's a complete journey. I think one of the important things I speak to so many of my clients about, and even friends, we get into conversations about that there's no arrival point. There's not going to be a day when we have it all figured out. And then from that point on, life is seamless and everything's great. I think as a young girl, that's how I thought it was. So I was really disappointed for a while when it didn't turn out that way. I do believe that this is all a journey. And wherever you are, again, I want to speak to your listeners, wherever you are in this moment, that is the perfect moment. This is the perfect entry point to begin this journey. And that's what it's about. It's a journey. It's not, you don't have to have everything figured out. You don't have to do it perfectly. As you said, some of it's befriending, even before ourselves, just befriending this moment. If we really use that word, it's like befriending this breath, coming into ourselves and just being like, okay, in this moment, and usually this is true, usually in this moment, everything is okay. And I have had points in my life where I was in such grief after a loss of someone that I loved, that you have to go moment by moment by moment. And that's okay too. And to realize that as we do this process and not try to shove things down, it actually is creating more room for the joy. It's creating more room for this expansion where, oh my gosh, my heart and my soul are feeling more free. I am feeling more open to receive love and to give love. So I think it really does. It starts with coming to this moment. And as we do that, it really is, it's like befriending all of life. And we don't have to hold our breath. Like, oh, I'm so worried about what's going to happen. Let's be in what's happening. Let's be right here, right now with each other. This is the entry point for the divine. This is the entry point for love. And this is the entry point for healing. So it's being here right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you're saying that, I'm feeling so loved right now. I don't know why, but I feel so much gratitude and so much love. So I hope our listeners are getting some of that love that we're sending and receiving as well, and feeling that in their lives right now, no matter what they're doing. And you have a lot of exciting things coming up as well for our listeners to tune into. We have your podcast, Igniting the Spark, but you also have a film project coming up. Would you like to share a little bit about that? I feel like that really is a continuation from everything that you have created and put into the world so far. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, there's two films actually right now. I have one that's out, which is called When Sparks Ignite. And people can watch that on Humanities Stream Plus. If they go to humanitiesteam.org, they will be able to watch that film. And I have a new film series coming up, which is Becoming Fierce, which was filmed a few years ago in Colorado with 20 women. It was all women. It was so powerful. 6 international thought leaders from all over the world. And 3 days of profound transformation that was caught on film. What was such a joy about it is it was also the behind the scenes. So you see how not only the participants heal and transform. I mean, there's one young woman who was there who could barely stand through the orientation, the opening. And at the end, she's dancing. 3 days later, you see this incredible transformation. And each one of us as presenters and as the host, we transformed as well. We had so many things happen internally. So you see all sides, if you will, of the camera. You see the behind the scenes. You see the transformation that happens when we come together, not just as women, when we come together with soul purpose. And from that place, incredible things, incredible healing, incredible expansion can happen. So we have 2 episodes rough cut right now, and in 2 weeks, we'll be back in the studio working on those. So I will keep you and your audience posted as that continues to come to fruition.
Wonderful. And what an amazing project, and 2 films. So we'll link also the first film that our listeners can watch already. And yeah, I look so very much forward to the second film as well. I love watching these transformations because sometimes it's easy for us to just think of what's in our lives keeping us stuck. But when we actually get to see some of these possibilities, some of these transformations and changes, it becomes a lot more real and a lot more possible for us in our lives as well. So I so would look forward to sharing that with our listeners as well. So thank you for that. And thank you so much, Stephanie, for joining me today. It has been an absolute pleasure. And we will, of course, be linking to all your offerings, resources, and films in the show notes so that our listeners know where to connect with you. And thank you. I am so grateful. My heart is full for spending this time with me. And thanks for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much. What a joy and what a kindred spirit we share. Thank you so much, Petra.
Thanks, Stephanie, and take really great care of yourself. And I look forward to seeing what else unfolds in your life. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Jōrni Podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Jōrni on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejorni.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.